Support for Donnybrook Last Call is provided in part by Design Air Heating and Cooling.
So much for joining us for Last Call, where we get to some of the topics that we couldn't get to in the first segment. Thank you for watching. Bill, it was a horrendous day on Wall Street today. I'm not sure the president was looking for it, but Wall Street reacted to his tariffs on foreign products by just plummeting. People lost thousands of dollars individually and across the nation. Trillions were lost, and that means people's pensions, their retirement money going out the door. And as we know, a lot of people are very afraid of the economy right now because there are layoffs and they're thinking they may not be spending money. That could lead to a recession. If this doesn't reverse, and if it hits people's pocketbooks like it is right now for some lengthy period of time, do you think Missouri will become a blue state?
No, I mean, if it's just the stock market, I don't think that like a lot of people have portfolios and are going to think, oh, my stock has gone down. You know, now if people start losing jobs, sure. I mean, if inflation gets worse, sure. But I think like the farmers, you know, what Trump did the last time he was in, you just write him checks because the tariffs are costing him money. But I don't think that most of America really is concerned about the stock market.
I don't think you could flip the state. I think you could flip a congressional district near to us. And I think that's the plan coming up here in a couple of years. They're targeting the districts that they feel as though Democrats feel as though they could win. And this is fodder for that because that's where people live. You know, I'm talking about the 2nd Congressional District, and people have money in the stock market out there. But there's also just kind of like with the mayor, the kind of drip, drip, drip. Now, we're in the market for a car, okay? Said car is going to get bought a little bit quicker here. We're not going to wait until the summer, because we better take care of that now. And it starts hitting people individually in different ways, and the reaction, could lead to like some changes, but not the whole.
Don't forget, let's say your car goes up $5,000. With sales tax, that's another. You get $5,000
exactly.
plus your sales tax is up $500, and this thing has a ripple effect. That means they'll have less money in their pocketbook, less money they can spend down the street, and I think at the end of the day, every election depends on the economy and how people are feeling about their lives.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if you don't get your tags, he's going to be knocking on your door.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
I get my tags.
He'll be tweeting.
I got it.
Go ahead. If social media, this is quick. If social media is any indication, the people who voted for him knew that it was going to be painful. There's a whole lot of it's surprising. There's a whole, and of course I do not engage on social media, but there's a whole lot of people saying, just wait.
If it's any indication, that's the key phrase.
If it's any indication, and it probably isn't.
And I got to take exception to that. It's like, well, if the economy keeps going down, will we be in trouble? Well, yes. And if it starts to go back up, we'll get out of trouble. And if it keeps going higher and higher, will we all have boats and retire to Aruba? I mean, it's the stock market. And now we're going to say, because it did this today, will an entire state change its in-ground feelings about what government should be doing? No, I don't think one day. Let's look at it 6 months down the
Don't
road.
forget pensions, teachers' pensions, union pensions, people's 529 plans.
So you're saying it's never going to go back up again?
No,
It'll never go back up.
Well, as I said, if it doesn't go back up, this could be a blue state. That's my theory.
And if
now, people can't even imagine.
And if
Missouri
it does
being a blue
go
state.
way up, could a bunch of blue states become red states?
Yes, as they have.
Okay,
They have.
So Massachusetts is going to swing if everybody in
Well,
Boston
Massachusetts is a little bit different.
No,
Sure.
I think we're trying to gauge a long-term project over saying, here's what happened in one day. If that never changes. Well, okay, when it gets up to 104 degrees,
it's a
if the
story.
temperature never goes down.
All he's
It's a
saying, like
story.
2 years from now, if it's not good, now we're in the next presidential cycle. And whoever's going to run for president, and I don't think it's going to be President Trump, but who knows? Whoever's going to run for president.
won't be.
Yeah,
It
whoever's
won't be.
going to run for president, they're going to have to deal with that.
I've got news for you. If it's like this in 2 years, we'll probably be looking to sleep in one of your garages.
Well, and I don't mean to be terribly petty, but I remember like in 87 or 89 or something, the stock market sort of crashed. And I remember thinking, too bad. In kind of in a very petty way.
It depends
I
where you
didn't
are.
have anything.
but 60% of Americans have money in the stock market. So I want to ask you, Joe, the mayor's kind of having trouble catching a break these days. And she had a press conference this week pointing out, look, homicides are at 23 for the first quarter. That means we could have less than 100, which might be about a third of what they were in 2022 or so. Why isn't it resonating? That's like an indisputable number when it comes to crime figures, the number of homicides. 23 is very good for St. Louis. Not that great for other areas. Last year, St. Charles had 5 total homicides. I'm talking the county. But 23 is good. It's she and the chief are trying to get the message across, but I'm not even sure the press has picked up on it yet.
Well, we had on the front page that they reported, that the mayor and the chief reported these numbers. I think people are tired of these numbers because what happens is one side talks about the numbers when they're up, one side talks about the numbers when they're down. They never talk about it per capita to actually give it any explanation. So now you can say, well, there's 23 in 1/4 of the year, so times it by 4. Well, this was in a very cold winter. So there's a lot more to these numbers than what you can do in a 30-second blurb on television or even in a 20-inch story in the newspaper. There's a lot of science to it. So we have less population. So to me, any homicide number that is not based on per capita, I tend not to go with them one way or the other, whether they go up or down.
And before this, they were excited about a 10-person reduction. I just don't think that's anything to get excited about unless you're one of the 10 who didn't lose your life. But I agree with you in terms of per capita. That's where
we too had a story on the front page, and it was just cut and dried. Like I say, it wasn't no editorializing or anything like that. I will say that it was 23. If it was 123, people would have a lot more to say about it.
In a quarter?
Right. And that's what I'm saying. But you're talking about per capita. If it was 46, that's twice as bad. Thus, I'll take the 23, and I don't care how many people live in St. Louis. I wish it was 0, but I'll take 23 before I'll take 46 or 100. So let's celebrate the fact that 100 people didn't get killed.
It's really odd, though, that homicides are down nationally. I mean, it's not just St. Louis. I mean, you read, Detroit, lowest since like, in 50 years or something. New York down. I think even Chicago's down. I have no idea what's going on.
I think, and Boston had 24 all of last year. But I find it odd that people are more concerned about reckless driving than they are about homicides. For example, I see Kara Spencer every chance she opens her mouth talking about reckless driving. Bob Clark was on Sarah Fenske's podcast. He brought that up. And when you think about it, people, they probably talk more about the crazy driver they saw going through a red light in the city than a homicide they heard about.
That's because your chances of being clipped by somebody driving recklessly are much greater than you, in your mind, of being a victim of homicide.
I remember as a night police reporter, if there was a shooting at a crack house, the readers don't go, oh my gosh, but if there's a shooting at a mall where people might be,
that's what I was going to say.
Right.
Who's getting killed?
Right.
That's why I don't know about
exactly
care.
Well, I think people care because I think it goes back to Wendy's, and I think that is the answer.
What?
We all are out on the streets in cars, and we all see people run red lights. I haven't this week seen anybody shoot a gun at anybody.
That's true, but if 5 people got killed in St. Louis Hills tomorrow, okay, it would be big time news more than if 25 people got killed in North St. Louis. And not under even strange circumstance or anything, it would just be bigger news. That's all. It does come down to who gets killed. And a bunch of, gang member black kids up in the city killing each other, that doesn't move the needle. I mean, that's just a reality.
Alvin, we got a 2-minute warning. Let's go to Kirkwood. Kirkwood, the town you love, spent $30,000 on a snowplow. No problem, except the money came from the opioid settlement, which was supposed to help people who are battling their opioid addictions. Is there any justification for that snowplow?
Well, I've never been on heroin nor driven a snowplow. This is bad. Come on, Kirkwood. We can do better than that. That's now. I kind of when I I winced when I read that.
But if the emergency vehicles are delivering Narcan in the snow, they might need a snowplow.
Well, you talked about the per capita. We could pretty much walk everywhere in Kirkwood if we had to. I'm not making light of any kind of addiction or anything, but this was just a bad decision. I don't know.
Is it possible, okay, this is going on a limb though, Kirkwood got $71,000 out of the $154 million settlement that the state got, and the money's supposed to go to alleviate the suffering of opioid addiction. Is it possible Kirkwood doesn't have $71,000 worth of opioid suffering?
Well, but I think you do, like, maybe you can, when you're on Robert's Rules of Order where you could give your time to somebody else to speak, maybe we give it to the city or give it to someplace else and say, like, you guys need this for billboards.
With a fentanyl problem, though, the likes that we're seeing these days, I can't imagine that you couldn't stockpile
That's
the
a good
Narcan
point.
or what have you. Mm-hmm. I think that it looks like there just was something fell through the cracks.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot of oversight as there should have been.
Right.
So,
Bill, what would George Orwell say about this?
yeah.
Well, I think I was going to say Soma, but that's Aldous Huxley.
I was just going to say, all the clock struck 13, right?
Wow.
Winston Smith, that's where.
Okay, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of Last Call. Thank you very much. Happy reading, and we'll see you next week.